Even though for years there's been a stigma to it. For years there's been a giggle effect because of little green men and flying saucers and all that. I myself never thought to this day that I'd ever see anything like this. So going back to the event, we decided to get in a tactical column and approach this, right? And we got down the slope, and it's just like a clearing and just has this big opening. It's almost a little bit more than the football field because this craft took up majority of that.
So let's just back up for a minute. Let's describe the setting, because at first you said there were helos doing racetracks around. Is this the same opening that you described earlier that you were watching helos drop supplies
No.
Okay.
So where this was happening was southwest, at least where the helo insertion points were with the LZs that they were setting up. And they were flying very low in consideration, right? So, and the reason why I know this is because I asked the pilots after this, because I was on the officers' mess, and I knew their call signs, and I approached them and I asked them very respectfully if they noticed anything strange. None of them said anything.
Okay.
So I was trying to see if they could get a view of a topside, because this is just something that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So also their call signs all stuck out too, because pilots like to do crazy stuff with their call signs, so it was very easy to track them down. But having this happen on the north part of the slope and it goes down, and obviously, the way it was transitioning colors, which was kind of the way that it appealed, because it was transitioning for a light matte black, a light matte gray to a dark matte black, and just kind of ranging in between, right?
Well, let's rewind a little bit before we get into the description.
Okay.
How far? So, what was the activity with all the other helicopters? Were they active at the time that you saw the
Honestly,
UAP?
When we started going down there, no.
Okay.
And I don't know, because obviously we were occupied with this.
How far do you think it was?
So from the LZ where we were at was 300 meters roughly, okay, plus the slope that was concealing plus vegetation. Down the slope, it was like 400 meters maybe. So we got close. We trucked down quite a bit.
Okay.
About 150 meters outside, 150, 200, right? Halfway. And
so maybe about a click away.
Possibly, yeah.
At the farthest.
The craft itself might have been a click out.
Okay.
Yeah. And as like I said, the reason why I know how big this thing was because...
Did you see it as you crested the hill?
Yes, I did. And that's where I took videos and pictures of this thing. That's how I was able to see it, because, taking pictures of the chaos going behind and everything, you see in the rubble, burning buildings, flooding and all that kind of stuff. And then you turn around and I'm like...
So you crest this hill.
Yep.
You look down into the valley.
Yep.
And there's a clearing.
There's a clearing.
With a UAP.
Yes.
Just sitting there.
Sitting there,
hovering.
rotating clockwise, yep. And that's in transition, this color spectrum I was telling you too. And that's why it's something that stuck out. It's not a building, It's not something that you're used to seeing. Maybe topside it could have looked like a building or something that, I don't know. I don't have that perspective. I wasn't a pilot or anything. But I can tell you from our point of view, it's something that it looked very unnatural and abnormal. And that's what got our curiosity to go investigate this. Now, normally, because we would have had comms, you're damn right we'd have called it in. Report something suspicious. Maybe get some eyes on a helo, get a hold of their call signs, and try to do them fly around, and they never did. And obviously, we didn't have comms to do it, but they were more occupied with what was going on behind us. So when we trekked down and got around 150 to 200 meters from it, and this is an opening. By the way, there's no tactical advantage being in this situation, because you don't have cover. It's jungle. You have concealment, but this kind of concealment with vegetation is not bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
So when we trekked up close, and we were attack column, so obviously you have points here, right, each Marine. So you have visuals of the sides, somebody has point, and somebody has the rear. And all of a sudden we're enveloped by this military force I still to this day don't know who they are. And
how close did you get?
To the craft?
To the craft.
Roughly 200 meters, 150, 200.
Did you get to the bottom of the hill?
Yes.
So you could see, you saw the top of it, and then you could see underneath of it.
And underneath of it had this platform that was on the ground that was separate from this craft hovering. And it was very weird to see, and I was like, okay, I don't know if that's kind of like a cement pad or something. I don't know if it was like a helo pad or anything like that at first, but then started seeing how the material kind of looked very similar to what the craft was. It's like, well, that's separate. So you have something that's on the ground, stationary, and then you have something that's up top, and it's just rotating in a clockwise position. So right when we got close to it, at least 150, 200 meters out, then all of a sudden we were engaged, at least not in a hostile manner, at least, not gunfire or firefight or anything like that. But the way that these guys moved was so fluid, it was so still, it was very, very, very smooth. And it kind of indicated to me, after thinking about it for several years, is that these guys had done it for a while because of how smooth this operation was. So when we were in a tactical column going towards the center of this thing, they actually came from the flanks, but it was more of a diagonal, like a corner of the room, so to speak, right? For them, in a tactical advantage, they have interlocking fields of fire on every single person, and they had a team of 8, right? And the gear that they had was black OTV vests. They had black camouflage utilities.
So what you're saying is there would have been no They were professionals.
Yes,
there would have been no Mexican standoff where if they fired, they're shooting into their other squad. They had perfect angles.
Yes, they did.
To where both sides could engage you.
Yes. Team of 4, team of 4. So it was like a fire team element.
Without worrying about a blue on blue situation.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, with that being said, because as they approached us, you hear the safeties flip off. Now, your attention to detail, when you're seeing this kind of stuff, your senses are very heightened, so you can pick up. I know you being a combat veteran, you know all about that. Your heightened sense of awareness is going through astronomical changes.
Hypervigilant.
Yes. So you can hear stuff a lot clearer. And that's when you kind of picked up the hum that this object was doing along with these guys flipping their safeties off, especially M4s. It's very distinct sound. Anybody in this room who's held M4s and has shot them, M16s, things like that, it's very distinct sound to flipping it off. So we kind of knew, and they started yelling at us. They were like, you're not supposed to fucking be here. What the fuck are you guys doing here? Who the fuck are you with? So they knew they were using the kind of lingo that we were using too, especially in the military. So it made me think that at some point these guys actually were uniformed military at one point.
Any accents?
Not accents. It's just like American dialects, how you and I were talking. At one point they said they were going to smoke us. They could throw us out of a helicopter. It's very easy to get lost in the jungle out here. They kept saying stuff like that. So after they enveloped us, they all pretty much got in line. They told us to put our weapons, so we all got in line as well. And we had our hands up. We had our weapons slung. And they're having 2 guys watch while there's a guy basically taking our magazines out of our vest. And they're throwing them on the deck and they're kicking them away so we don't have time to react. They also, at the same time, the first thing they did was obviously take our weapon and clear it. But they took the magazine out and they actually held it in a way to where they could pull a charging handle and collect the round and have it not hit the deck. So the way that these guys operated was very smooth. It's very calculated, very precise. You could tell they've done this a lot, or they've rehearsed it a lot. Especially combat operations, you're doing terrain model rehearsals. You're doing rehearsals whether you're clearing rooms, trying to figure all that kind of stuff out. These guys kind of did the same thing, I'm assuming, because of how smooth it was. And because as well as I do, you have new guys that join a unit and they're not that fresh. They're very choppy because they have the basic understanding of either how to stack up and do room clearing. And the guys that have done it and been through combat deployments and all that, they're very kind of methodical, very smooth because they know what to expect. These new guys, it's not the same thing. You could tell these guys were seasoned. So as they did that, they actually, each Marine had 2 guys on them, plus one that was taking the stuff off of them. They actually knew where our military IDs were because in Marine Corps order, you have to have them in your left breast pocket.
So there were 15 of these guys, 3 on each Marine.
No. So they had other guys right here, and they had 3 that were just going through each Marine,
okay,
while other people were holding each Marine at gunpoint. And they're not like super close to us range wise with because if you get a muzzle close, it's easy to grab it and kind of fend off, especially with a rifle. But these guys were off at a standoff distance that even if you try to move, they could smoke you.
One search team of 3 guys.
Yes.
And then the rest of the squad was aimed in on you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, they're not anywhere where they could actually, there was people behind us because obviously if they had to engage, they're going to hit one of their own guys probably. So it was more like they were kind of moving the same way through all of us, all 6 of us, taking our stuff, taking pictures of our military IDs, So they had like these devices that kind of look like a very thin, it looked like a smartphone modern day right now, because in 2009 it wasn't the case. I think the most high-tech thing they had at that time were maybe Blackberries, but they're bulky at that point with the ball, and then they had their flip phone razors and things like that. But these look like something you'd see today. And they were taking pictures of military IDs, and they had some other device that was like reminded me of a BAT system. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Describe it.
It's like a biometrics tracking system. So what it does is when you come across with an insurgent, you can take pictures of their face, their retinas, fingerprints, something like that. But they were trying to scan our IDs with this thing. and it wasn't working. So they're kind of getting frustrated with it. So as this is going on,
did they collect biometrics from you?
No.
Okay.
No. Which, I mean, they took pictures of us, but that may be enough. And then they took our IDs, you know, because some people I talked to that are in the special operations community with that, they said, yeah, we have the ability to scan IDs and it tells us everything about you. Military IDs, driver license, things like that. So it's very high speed stuff. I mean, and considering this was in 2009 compared to now, I mean, of course, they had this thing that they were using to load up stuff. It's very advanced physics, you know, something hovering off the ground, not making any sound, but an audible hum, like a guitar amp or something that's like a transformer.
So it wasn't like, it didn't sound like a jet.
No.
It didn't sound like a helicopter.
Hell no.
There was no engine noise.
Nope.
Just a hum.
Just an audible hum. It's very creepy to see because it's not normal.
Was it like a bassy hum?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Like a guitar. Like if you were to unplug it, I mean, it wasn't the same pitch, but it was like the same kind of sound, same kind of noise that it emitted. And so as they're searching us, we're watching this thing happen. And that's when we started seeing trucks come from our left and go onto this platform. And they were up armored 350s. I know exactly what 350s are. They were kind of beefier trucks. They were matte black. When they were coming at us, and they go left. And I was glancing between what was going on in front of us with these guys, and then all of a sudden glancing over to what was going on behind them. And that's when I started seeing the key details of this thing. Like it had like a scale pattern on it, kind of like an octagonal, because the craft itself was like an octagonal shape where you could see points. Had a pyramid structure on top that was black, and you can see the shadowing of it as it rotated. But it was rotating very slow. And then it had like these vents on every single corner on the middle part of these the panels anyway. There was like a Vanta black. It was like a dark black that would like absorb light. Very weird.
What do you mean by that? A dark black that would absorb light?
So if you ever familiar with the BMW, they painted Vanta black. It was like a very super dark black. It's not like a reflective material at all.
The matte black?
Yeah, but very, 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 even darker than matte black.
Okay.
Like you can shine a light at it and it won't even illuminate.
Like the Batmobile?
Kind of. Okay. Something like that. But even, it was like very dark. The only way I can describe it was like that Vanta black.
Okay.
And
when you mean absorb light, you're saying if I shine a laser on it, you might not even see the laser.
Correct.
Or it would be very dull.
Correct.
Okay.
Something like that. So we're watching these vehicles, right? These trucks. Now, the thing I would say on the front of them, because, you know, Humvees, the military has, they have the IR lights on the front near the headlights that you can drive at nighttime with your knots. So they had the same thing because they had the same kind of slits that had the IR lights. But they had weapon cases in the back of each truck bed. And, you know, you could store like a couple hundred weapons, maybe 100 weapons, maybe a platoon, a company-size element. And it was the same Pelican casings that we would use to store stuff when they were transloading, you know. So very big cases on 2 of them in each truck bed. And then they had a shipping container thing. I mean, it looked like a shipping container, but smaller and half the size. And the thing that was different about this is I had a cylinder on the front of it that was towards the truck. It was like parallel to the ground, just a cylinder right on the top of this thing. And for years I thought, okay, you know, like there's got to be oxygen supply or like a vacuum sealing thing that you would, you know, because obviously I'm thinking it's drugs. I was like, okay, so this is a very advanced way to do that, just years of thinking of this. And come to find out, when I gave my speech in D.C. on that Saturday for the Disclosure Project with Dr. Greer, he's got a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, by the way. And this gentleman, I'm not going to give any detail. I know a little bit about him, but he works in some of these projects at some very controversial facilities. He's aware of what was going on. After I gave my presentation of this, he confirmed, he says, no, he's like, I don't want to leave Michael hanging out there, but I was not expecting to come and talk to you about this. And he went explaining what the operations do, why they do it, and what they were using them for. And he says, there's not drugs that they're putting in these shipping containers. He says it's humans.
Human trafficking.
Yes. His own words. And, he, you know, of course. And he also wants to come forward, at least with him and 30 other people that are involved with that part of the work. But it was very disheartening to actually get that information relayed to me, because here I'm thinking for years it's drugs and it's a much sinister thing. But it makes sense because they use natural disasters that people are going to be missing anyway.
Yep.
To scoop up people.